Hi, welcome to this episode. It's a special one because it's about how I made this podcast. All the technical details, some theory, philosophy, and how it all comes together. So let me show you the map. We're going to dive into reading my article about it with all the images. It's called Vulnerable Podcasting 2.0. Bitcoin Lightning Node Monetization Setup 2024. There'll be some setup intro, notes on security, map of sequential steps, from primary to foundational, Lightning wallets, Nostr account, online presence, and the content itself. Now this is where, so the actual content of the podcast is where Recon and Bitcoin come together, and this is an example of a map. And because on all my maps, I try to point out how Bitcoin maps and my web application security testing specialization comes in. Part one of this article and what I'm reading about will be theory. Part two is a setup of the Bitcoin Lightning Node network and Nostr. Part three is about podcasting 2.0. And part four will be conclusions. We'll be going to why this article even and relating to some of the secret layer work. Secret layer I described in other podcast episodes. And we're going to be going into the professional aspect here is the creative audiovisual work, its own professional aspect. Some of the specialization in the setup is the actual, so I actually do the work of what this podcast is all about, the Bitcoin security, the purchasing of the Bitcoin, transferring it, Lightning node addresses, starting with a node, the app for it, the wallets, and the Nostr private key, and so on. Let's see here. So the civilian matrix, right? The part one is about that. In part two, we also explore the Umbrella operating system with its apps, some of the theory about channel design. Part three also includes new RSS values for the value for value exchange with Bitcoin. So also about my hosting provider, the listening app. And in the final aspect, we'll be talking about Web3 future, some Bitcoin and new energy, and how that relates to the secret layer as well again. So onto the article. Here it is. It's on my Medium publication called Cyberpower Talanoia. I released it May 3rd, 2024. And has been a popular one as well. And what else I want to say? So it says here that it's a 24-minute read. So I'm going to be skimming over some parts. 24 minutes means a robotic voice would read it in that amount of time while reading nonstop. So it's too long to read in that way. I'm going to be going through it a bit faster. Okay, here we go. The headers I like, so I'm going to read the title. The Glowing Transparent Cyberpunk Humanoid Podcast Sphere Broadcasting in Another Realm. So that was my Runway ML text-to-image prompt, and it created this image. I thought it was relatively suitable enough to be used. This article is about the work behind setting up my home podcast called Bitcoin Security Maps, The Art of Civilian Intelligence. Where does that take me if I click on that? Should just be my article, my homepage. Wasn't loading. Okay, wow. No, where does it go? Fountain.fm show. Okay. Taking a moment there. Soon available everywhere and especially on Fountain. The work itself is an example of a Bitcoin security mapping. At any point in this setup, blueprint where a human interacts with a computer for data input, the data transmission and data storage, it is a vulnerability by design, especially since these are relatively new digital computational technologies. Okay, what is going on with this not loading? This is absurd. This site can't be reached. What? Okay, how is this even happening? What? I have to go to my. This is silly, absolutely silly to be happening at all. I need to work on this something for a second here. No, what I thought might be the issue is not an issue. Wow, that is... I'm not embarrassed. This is just weird. Let's see if in my bookmarks, what was I wanted to go to? I was supposed to go to fountain.fm in the show. Well, that's weird. Let's see if I go to the YouTube site. Okay, well, there you see it on YouTube. Why is the fountain.fm not loading? I'm not going to dwell on that, but I guess instead I'll show the pod home, the hosting on which I have the podcast, and you see the episodes and names are there. So it is on Fountain. I don't know, for some reason it's not loading right up. That's too bad for them because it's an awesome podcast of mine. Okay. Especially since these are relatively new digital computational technologies. The term vulnerable simultaneously refers to the state I am in as a creator. It's precisely this human attribute that I am sharing through my content. A sense of originality, perhaps something new. At a certain higher levels, it can be said that a given cyber vulnerability depends on the national security risk, which is the likelihood and impact a breach can have on what is considered valuable in the culture of maintenance of a nation. A multi-dimensional blueprint map helps me see the relative placement of a part in the setup sequence. So for example, the Lightning Network node address. How important and vulnerable is this as part of the whole? Right, so I'll be showing some maps in a second. Notes on security. As this is an outline I developed while trying the easiest routes to get the podcast to a stage of working order. In this way, I picked up on the quickest routes many people might be taking, and so I have been noting security questions for future consideration in the next iterations. For now, the outcome is an unstoppable self-custody podcast outside of the system. However, that makes everything on the following map a security concern. All of these are vulnerabilities because data is being input, computed, transmitted, and stored. This is why, at certain high levels of security, simplified pre-digital analog systems are used. Let's see, so this is a map here. I'm showing digitally, I'm zooming in. Right, so this is a map of the steps of the setup. And I did this so that others can follow. There are others that are popular and are being canceled or their accounts are being shut down, or temporarily at least, and they would, many people would find value in this, that, and many people do not know that this exists. I'm just going to so we're going to be actually talking about this. So this is just, it's a numbered sequence. I'll go through, the first 5. So first, it's good to understand the primary aspects of everything, that electricity and the internet and a router, to whether it is in a business or in a home setting. Those are very important primary aspects that you need to understand, that they're a part of the setup, especially if you're a sovereign entity, meaning outside of the system. And then the foundation here is, the actual podcast itself involves like camera, microphones, and lights, and so on, and tools with that. You need to have an operating system running a Bitcoin node, for example. It's helpful. It's a secure way of doing things, right? So you have to have, for example, I have a Raspberry Pi running a certain OS. Your home base, so you need a personal computer with an operating system with, USB hardware wallet, perhaps a web browser, utility programs, a hypervisor, and a mobile operating system as well there. So the first step would be buy Bitcoin, then is download Umbrel, then install Umbrel, and run Umbrel, install Bitcoin node on there, and the Lightning node, and then what's this 6 is create a Lightning node channel. Okay, and you have all these steps, and they continue, and then, so there's a huge sequence here. So that was the map of the sequential steps for a vulnerable podcast 2.0 setup on a Bitcoin Lightning network node. Primary, right? It's the electricity and the internet in a harmonious environment with a router. Foundational, the computing devices, right, that I mentioned, Right, and then the steps are listed here again, and the Lightning Wallet setup, the Nostr account, the online presence, and the podcast content itself there. So with all the computers that will be used, all require human input, computation, the movement of data, and its storage. At any one point, when any of this is happening, confidentiality, accessibility, and integrity, the CIA triad, can be compromised at the following levels: the human level, the hardware level, network, operating system, application, API, protocol, and so on. This is an ethical hacker show for a working live mobile setup. The focus is web application security all the way towards a project to audit the knowledge base of electricity itself. Therefore, understanding money as the economic energy of one's time and freedom, this is essential. Again, understanding money as the economic energy of one's time and freedom is essential. So, when I now tune in to any news from the front lines of Bitcoin, Nostr, and podcasting theory, I can relate to various kinds of information because I have this map. And also because I've worked on understanding the differences in communication between InfoSec professionals. Read about this in my article, New Human InfoSec Intelligence Comms Protocol for Values Alignment. Right, that'll load that article. Now, the following headlines in 4 parts outline the minimums one can strive to in order to connect one's own multidimensional mapping of the placement of these technologies in life. As in on the map there, theory, the setup, the podcasting, and the conclusions. So, why this podcast? Ultimately, there is a need for technologically secure solutions which could assist in bridging information between spheres of knowledge. For example, the project to audit the scientific knowledge base of the sources of electricity and its distribution. There are many attack vectors which prevent one from accomplishing this, but with the right threat model, one can create an unstoppable disclosure. As long as intelligence is used for covert competition between nations, the amount of malicious entities involved in attempts at monetary power and control will continue to grow with the civilian populations living in dimensions without knowledge of their predicament. It will thus take increasing civilian care and evolution to maintain freedom for those with the right aims beyond competition. I'm starting to see that for this reason, a technocracy might be necessary to control the ignorant, blissful masses who do not care, all the way up to self-destruction, their own self-destruction. Yeah, I speak this way about this and write about it in various other articles. Those are just my personal opinions. They're not related to any business I conduct or professional work. Right. I care, and this is why I'm developing a unique line of work as a consultant in web app security. For example, anywhere cryptographic key pairs are noted and transmitted is the domain of security. And such key pairs are fundamental for the existence and use of Bitcoin and Nostr, the technological basis of this podcast monetization setup. From my first uses of the Lightning Network and from tuning into the pulse of the makers of these projects directly, I have a sense that I come from a land of experience in the much vaster, ubiquitous web filled with malicious and nefarious entities, as well as the crypto altcoin community, which sees constant attacks on its people, projects, and organizations. From this, I can tell that there is work to be done in the Bitcoin community in the web AppSec perspective, and I'm glad to be here. So part 1 there is theory. Why a podcast setup article? I started from scratch, and this setup was a lot of work over 1 month without pay. I do have an unrelated income, and that is what I use as support. This article is an attempt to share a feasible home approach for the average person with a computer in order to install one's own quality podcast that is both outside of the main system yet compatible with it. I care and have a human responsibility to attune holistically, including with the technologies that I use. I feel very engaged in life, and in this field I'm able to work with my neuroatypicality. I research and I write on paper, then I transpose digitally. I often go from chaotic stickies to notes, to articles, and to podcast content. I have also set up meetups in physical space, and I do and live streaming for virtual connections. So the year 2024 is already a few beats into the popular generative artificial intelligence, and it is possible to have an organized AI produce high-quality podcasts for the masses. I'm producing a podcast to display the potential a human has when they are relatively free from the program of the local operating system. One would think that most people are interested in this, and that is the case, but an interest is not the life itself. So, introduction. Care and having a need is helpful in this case. That would be the personal attunement aspect of creating a censorship-resistant podcast for sovereign monetization. The technical side is simplified in this article example in order for the average person to access it as a guideline. Any of the headlines or emphasized words and concepts can be researched as needed. These do not take much extra time and effort to contextualize into one's own situation for implementation. It is always debugging that may take lots of time, so the problems in following this guideline to completion should all be solvable within 1 week. The greatest challenge I found in doing the work is a lack of having a map about how everything relates. Here I attempt to provide both categorized text in a sequence and a general mapping. For any assistance, one can ask a so-called AI such as ChatGPT, using the words from the frameworks and the technologies one is using, stating aims and any errors in the process. So creative audio-visual now. A podcast is a presentation of oneself online to a global audience. 2 open source technologies I use are Bitcoin, through the digital money and its Lightning Network implementation, and Nostr, a censorship-resistant communications protocol. All this under a registered umbrella business structure called The Sky is High. On the most creative, artful aspects of podcasting is perhaps one's own presence. The content requires research, practice, experience, and various kinds of work such as connecting with others in the world of insights. One has to maintain health and energy in order to present value. Next is one's choice for the podcast content in audiovisual format, podcast series, and episode design for various content types, as well as the atmospheric lighting and musical design, website hosting, graphic and text design with photography, and audio-video clips. With this, the corresponding setup of Web 2 social media channels such as Facebook, Meta, YouTube, Twitter, which is X, and fulfilling their general purpose on popular networks, but also on corresponding decentralized Web3 networks and protocols such as Nostr and Fountain.fm in the way they are implemented. Here's a little image from my podcast notes, folder organization, a sort of living tree. Right, so I have huge folders of this podcast implementation and all the aspects of it. This isn't all in my mind. With the complications, that would be very difficult in terms of debugging. Oh, look at that. I'm in another image, so for now I'll put my face up on here. So it is good to have a professional audio and video setup. In my case, I use Audio-Technica AT2020 XLR microphones. I believe it's the same one that that is used by a famous artist. And the Audio-Technica M50X headphones. The mic is connected to an old mixer, but it works great with this particular knob and button settings and cables. This runs to my camera, Sony a7 III, with its selected manual settings and focus on 4K, if not directly to my computer when recording mere audio. I run both audio and video from the camera to my computer when streaming or recording complex episodes in OBS, which is open broadcasting software. For a second and third camera option, I use smartphones with an IP camera app, which are received by OBS. For lighting, I use a softbox. Right, maybe I'll show this softbox here, a key light here, 2 programmable LED lights, which shine onto the map in front of me. They have professional grade color temperature settings, and a lot of these things are on stands and so on. Look at that. That's me in an image frame grab. For theme music and sound design, I make my own beats in real time on an Akai XR20 beat machine. Sometimes people make careers just from the technical setup of either audio or video and beats. I have worked on film sets as a cinematography technician seasonally for 15 years. Even on, I don't know, most recently a Adele music video for Easy on Me. And on we go with the article. The civilian matrix now. The general global contemporary society is one type of system. The power of mathematics within the deepest layers of computing security, namely cryptography, allow the average person to step outside of the system. In order to be able to pay for my existence, economic energy is what I convert my value into. Now, this is money in the way that it's stored, especially through owning private keys which hold Bitcoin. What I'm doing now, then, is setting up my value transmission to work inside and outside of the system with money. Care and time with freedom to make this possible is essential. The sphere in which this project is created is the contemporary average civilian matrix, built around electrical and economic energies. For the increased security of my shared content, I have decided to tune into the latest innovations of the internet and to connect myself with the concept of value for value, or V4V. Now, this is a home setup which then acts as a personal financial sovereignty bank in sequence of primary needs. Financial intelligence is the key to the civilian matrix. It is a synthesis of personal methodology for thriving with economic energy. Wherever one is, this forms the basis for the lifestyle of society. I align my business to this lifestyle. I need to be participating, creating a network of people who have the same culture and possibly the aims. This is the culture of the treasury of value by today's artists, which include technologists of the internet. At some point in every episode podcast, I put on a stash because mastering the art of being a sock puppet for oneself is essential here. This is a security podcast about Bitcoin and maps. So we're going to be talking about why the mustache is essential for me. Building a Bitcoin Lightning Network node is the wizardry field of financial intelligence of today. It is the cultural connection of the contemporary matrix. Culture is being targeted by attack vectors and abused, and some business is profiteering from poor culture workers the most. And now on to part 2 of the article, Bitcoin Lightning Network and Nostr. I'll be skimming through some of these parts because this is more technical. The podcast monetization setup. This is the thermodynamics of decentralization. The electrical power for the computing operations and an internet connection for synchronization is essential. Ecological and environmental safety is a priority for the physical location of the hardware of the computing device and its data storage. The same for the living human beings taking care of themselves and of this technology. This is the setup of something that runs Bitcoin. This form of money exists because people of a certain culture in contemporary society run it. One does not have to have any Bitcoin in order to run Bitcoin. On the storage device is the Bitcoin blockchain being synced. The home router must be secured and have port forwarding from the external public internet to the internal device on the home network. The device which is running the Bitcoin node and Lightning is a Raspberry Pi 4B in my case, a single board low-cost embedded system computer with essential components. This is the website for it, and you can order some there or elsewhere. It's an image of mine. The aim of all this is to create a node for a personal mesh network topology for value network. The tutorial I used as a guideline is from CoinCodeCap because I wanted to test what they mean by in 5 minutes. Let's see if they have it. Yeah, how to run a Bitcoin Lightning node in 5 minutes. I found that amusing, and I did it in about a week. Okay. So the Umbrel operating system is what I use on this Pi. Right? It can be downloaded at this address. I etched it onto a micro SD card with Balena Etcher, and so on. I described the process here. You can access this OS through command line. on a separate monitor connected to the Raspberry Pi. And then you install various apps on that operating system. There's a reason for the power of being able to connect to it through command line, because you can issue Bitcoin-specific requests. So the other apps I use there are the Lightning Node Management Tools apps, Nostr Wallet Connect app, and my own Nostr Relay, which captures all my posts locally, and a Nostr client. And then, so the explanation here is that I have a Bitcoin Node app on that operating system on the Raspberry Pi, and it could be accessed on my home browser through port 2100 or another port, right? It's your personal node powered by a Bitcoin Core, and it shows a screenshot, and then I also explain here how I run the Lightning Node app on a different port, accessible on a different port, and through that you can not only self-custody your Bitcoin on Lightning, but also earn sats by routing payments on the network. So there's a screenshot of mine with blacked out parts. With the advanced features, you can take control of your node and customize it, right? I'm not reading everything, just skimming. So Bitcoin Lightning Node theory, right? I find that this is a big future, whatever this develops into. I believe it's so important. I'm going to be definitely focusing on separate episodes about this. This is a network value creation. My public node is my public digital economic energy. It is like making friends and business partnerships and communities liaisons. Similar to connections one may have among people in real life relations. And the significance of these. Lightning channel. First thing to do is open a channel with an existing node on the Lightning network, right? So this might be too deep to read. Maybe I'll read the first sentence of each paragraph. To open a channel with me means to connect economic energy. Open channels early with big players and then remain on the original network when not accessible anymore, or after Bitcoin valuation has gone up in the round. Right, so I'm even writing here in point form because this is so new and very few people understand it. And I see this is being developed rather rapidly, but at the same time quite consciously in a particular way. So, right, it's a good things to read about, but I'm going to skim over these at the moment. I found the best documentation about Lightning nodes here on this docs.lightning.engineering site, and then Lightning Network Tools and Lightning Terminal and opening channels. Lots of information there. All right. So I use certain details that I found there in my setup. And then you need to purchase Bitcoin. About $500 to $2,000 worth of Bitcoin seems to be a reasonable minimum to have a node. I'll read what I wrote in italics here. If you are not able to mine Bitcoin as a miner, and effective mining is mostly a multi-million-dollar business nowadays, for its purchase, use a safe and secure, genuine civilian method, and there are many. The easiest in almost every country is from someone with Bitcoin. Well, someone that you know, preferably. You do not necessarily want to be meeting people with Bitcoin, as used to be the case. It's not safe anymore. Well, it should be safe. But as Bitcoin security maps professionals, we know that it's not safe. At this point, it is good to understand Bitcoin as money by doing a deep dive and reading a book about money and Bitcoin. Okay. Transfer Bitcoin to a Lightning Network node on chain after you purchase it. And this is all about different types of addresses in my article here, like example addresses. Right, and then I have a section about Lightning addresses themselves. So settlement layer addresses are indeed similar to email addresses in format and are used as identifiers for receiving Lightning Network payments. It looks like an email address. And I describe these and and how to get them. And I used an orange pill tutorial. Let's see, by EzoFox. Find him on Nostr or her, I'm not sure. And this is a guide to create lightning address redirection on your domain. So something a little bit deeper, and the reasons for it. Then I have a section in the article about lightning wallets. So while having your own node with an address is an easy way of maintaining a type of wallet, it's like having your safe as your wallet. So therefore, it's best to create oneself a plan for the use of lightning wallets. These wallets can have their own lightning address for receiving. Various wallets are good to have, and separate them based on private and public use. They are similar to having a pant pocket with change, an actual wallet taken downtown, a stash of bills at home, a bank account, and a safe, and a vault, and like James Bond would do, somewhere on an island, accessible only to you through memory after every decade. So for example, here's an outline I used. Zeus wallet on mobile for a self-custody connection to my node remotely from anywhere with node management tools, a stash shelf, the Mutiny wallet, which is, as of this episode, is being discontinued eventually, but I was using it for standalone self-custody, a real digital wallet, no KYC, and a Strike wallet with KYC. And Alby, I have a separate section for this, getalby.com. This is for web use, an extension for web browsers, mostly on a personal computer such as a desktop or laptop. The same team seems to have made Nostr Wallet Connect and Amethyst for Android. Alby creates a master key for the account. Right, but you can also make your own keys elsewhere, as I did, and still use Alby. This master key creates an Alby Lightning wallet address. The same master key can create a Nostr key pair, both private and public keys, which can then be attached to the Lightning wallet address. Note then, however, that these are custodial wallet and address solutions, meaning the keys originated on the organization side, and one then trusts the their security perimeter. Alternatively, one can also connect to one's own Lightning node and design the limits in spending, and one can also import the Nostr private key via QR code or Nostr Wallet Connect, as I've been doing. Both. And I created my keys, some of them experimentally on separate computers, on virtual machines, using scripts described later on in this article. Wallet of Satoshi is a custodial wallet. I can use it with ease, but is kept in someone else's wallet, the Bitcoin. A Breeze, this is a self-custody wallet. Fountain app, this is the fruit, the ultimate example of V4V use of this setup. Right, so on the Fountain app, I have my own wallet there, and this enables direct payments for the content I produce on my podcasts. All right, I just highlighted that there because that's very important. There used to be, there used to be, because it's now gone. Lightning tips bot on Telegram for sending and receiving zaps at your name. I think someone should bring that back. Not sure why it's not there. Well, I could assume national security interests. My Nostr public address can have a selected Lightning wallet address associated with it later. This means one address for both functions. Now on to Nostr in general. Nostr began in 2019, and it's part of internet technology, an innovative new method of communicating, a protocol. Much of the Bitcoin community is using Nostr because it is related. The creator of Twitter, or X, uses Nostr. It is like ready-made code you can use to build new forms of communications. You access this technology by interfacing with it. These interfaces are called clients. When one has new forms of communication and a new form of money that can be transmitted, you can build economies outside of countries. Nostr itself is just a protocol. It's an agreed-upon procedure for passing messages around the internet. You will access Nostr, the protocol, via a client. Clients can be web, desktop, or mobile apps. Clients can fetch data from relays and also generate new data and push that to relays so others can read. The only form of data that exists on Nostr is the event. These events must contain a signature. The signature ensures that it can be proven mathematically that they were created by whoever happens to be their true author. This is done by the key pair. To be able to construct the signature, clients will need your private key. So you can only post on the client and into a relay. If this client somehow receives your private key, or rather the signature which originates from your private key. People with care and need from outside of big tech are building this in the open. It is not a product you buy ready to use. The most common appearance of Nostr is through apps that look like X, because the easiest things to share are texts and images and audio. Scroll around and get acquainted with the following sites, which I have used as guidelines and selected from my month of research. Get a sense of the time and depth needed to understand enough to make it work. The aim should be to have enough working knowledge to make an account that appears similar to X. And I have these listed here. I'll load one. Nostr.com obviously explains everything about Nostr. NJump is really interesting, and the rest here are very interesting. You can browse random content. Right. Random content. I can load the Bitcoin Security Maps Nostr profile. Here it comes. There it is. So it's asking me to load on Albi. I'm not going to do that right now. And here it comes. It's loading. All right, Bitcoin Security Maps. Right. And here are some posts about my podcast episodes there. Okay, and continuing now. Right. So the Nostr private key and its significance. This is as important as a Bitcoin private key, except that this is security for your data, which is basically the online value of your life. So if life is measured by, the time and freedom you have in life, so one thing you can have responsibility and sovereignty over is your money. So the economic energy of your time and freedom. This is the data of your time and freedom. So the digital version of what you create in life. One should be able to have their own basic needs met when sharing their value with society. Your public key is your username and your private key is your password, with one major caveat. Unlike a password, your private key cannot be reset if lost. The public key is generally presented as a string with the prefix npub1 and the private key with the prefix nsec1. Make sure you store your private key somewhere safe, like a password manager and beyond. Create a Nostr identity by signing up. Make a presence. One does this by creating a key pair, a secure way of storing one's identity. With Bitcoin, one has the private key, which makes the Bitcoin one's own. Same with Nostr. Your private key makes your account your own. You own your data by connecting everything you do to your private key. It's as if everything you do online is now your own kind of Bitcoin as opposed to belonging to some other company. I created a Nostr cryptographic identity by using a Kali virtual machine instance on VirtualBox, which I ran some scripts. All right, so Kali VM, you can download a virtual machine and VirtualBox. Right, you install that virtual machine onto this program. Right, both are free. The Kali operating system is a security researcher's toolbox, which has a Linux terminal and can be installed on almost any computer as a virtual machine using a hypervisor, such as VirtualBox. Two keys create a Nostr key pair, the private nsec and the public npub. The second script created a QR code from the private key. This is for scanning into other software in order to never to actually share the private key in clear text, nor to trust any other QR code generator. Certainly security measures will be expanded upon in the next iterations. Right, and then it explains the scripts you can run to generate your own private key and some security measures. And I have the scripts here. I'm showing in Python on the article, and then how to run them. And then I'll continue here. Nostr clients. Select the Nostr clients to use. Some on personal computers, some on mobile device. Clients are the interfaces available to use this new Nostr technology. There are many client apps being created. For now, consider those which are simple, like Twitter. For example, Primal for both laptop and mobile, Amethyst for Android, or Damus for iOS. Primal looks like what I showed you earlier. Amethyst can be loaded on your smartphone, and so on. In most of these, I scanned the Nostr QR code to sign in and prove that the public key I'm using belongs to me. However, that ultimately is not a way to do it. You should not. I would definitely look into using HSMs, hardware security modules of various sorts. The Nostr address. Set up your own address on your own domain, which is a NIP05 personal identifier, which translates your alphanumeric public Nostr key to a human memorable text that looks like an email. Again, I used an orange pill tutorial for this. Right, so you select one of the methods that's easiest for you, or rather not easiest necessarily. Or you can get a free one or a paid one. So both the Lightning Network address and Nostr address goes on the Nostr profile. And in that way you can begin sending and receiving Satoshis. Whether or not that's directly from your Bitcoin Lightning Network node, which also helps. So Nostr relays, select some Nostr relays to join. Use your client settings. I like those on Amethyst because they give the ability to activate relays for select parts of the app. It is possible to select which relays to read from and which to upload to. It is good to have at least one paid relay in order to eliminate spam and participate in a deeper discussion. Relays run on WebSockets, secure, so their addresses look like this, WSS, etc. Develop a Nostr account. Then I created an account by filling in the details over time and posting the most significant texts about myself and the podcast and my valuable content. This is like tattooing the internet with your words. Part 3 now. Podcasting 2.0. New RSS values. A solution to support easier monetization of content. Flow of economic energy for creating and collaborating without censorship. 2.0 is the latest iteration term used to describe the applied changes to the standards of technical podcasting methods. Specifically, there are additions to the RSS format, which is a technical specification. RSS is officially an acronym for Rich Site Summary, but many sources, including the United States government, accept the more telltale definition of really simple syndication. Either way, RSS is a form of online publication that pulls information from various sources in real time. So the addition is something being called value for value, V4V, as many original podcasters of the last 30 years have been those seeking autonomy from the world by casting their own voices over the internet. This new features are based on the Bitcoin Lightning Network protocol foundations. If you come and find the content useful, then you may choose to return the value through peer-to-peer transactions in Satoshis, Sats, or Bitcoin denominations. The podcaster simply has to adjust the RSS feed, often done automatically by newer podcasting hosts such as PodHome, which I've used, to include their Bitcoin Lightning wallet for receiving payments. For listeners, this means loading their Bitcoin Lightning wallets with Satoshis on newer podcasting listening apps, such as Fountain.fm. Their wallet may be custodial, such as the one Fountain FM offers, or one may connect another wallet for this use, such as Albi, etc. Having wallets organized previously is the reason for understanding which one to use at this point. So I've used PodHome as podcast hosting provider. This is right. The wallets and hosting providers may take percentage fees from the payments. They're very small, but it is also possible to host one's own podcast given resources and to provide one's own RSS feed, which is an XML text file using one's own domain and hosting plan. Right. So in other words, you don't have to use a podcast hosting provider, but it takes some setup otherwise, and time and freedom. Fountain.fm, podcast V4V listening app, also connects with Nostr. The listening consumers send value to the podcaster in the form of an instant remuneration of Satoshis. These can be sent as a one-time support or per streaming time measures, such as per minute, which is streaming, or at certain time in the podcast, such as boost, or with a message, which is a boostagram. The host of the show may split the payments automatically between collaborators, guests, and other stakeholders in real time. Finally, part 4, conclusions. Future podcast channels. For my video content, I'm starting with YouTube, but I expect it not to be easy to continue there for long. I'm also using other popular social media networks like Facebook, which is Meta, and Twitter, which is X. I've been following the developments in Web3 and crypto for almost a decade soon, so I do know of the upcoming exciting changes. My focus is on Bitcoin now, and I'm excited about the following. Right, but I just wanted to mention that that with that decade in the crypto ecosystem and around Bitcoin, mostly I've been interested in security, and so there's a lot of malicious entities, and increasingly so out there. That's something to note. Bitcoin-specific videos. So since we were dealing with a financial technology with global impact on the macro economy, there will be times when we will be best hosted on community platforms such as Orange Pill app, Bitcoin TV, and zap.stream. Okay, well, I can load those, right? They're stack friends who stack sats. Join the Bitcoiners there. Bitcoin TV is a whole online realm, right? With shows there. And zap.stream also, for those into the streaming aspects. Okay. New energy specific videos. So some presentations of mine will have a threat model of attack vectors which require frontline innovation on internet publications. So at that time, the consideration will be towards open source transnational live streaming using OnionShare, IFPS, and unstoppable front ends, etc., and whatever the future development of these will be, because those particular solutions are not enough. Right, and now in conclusion, so if one understands all of this in general and has this as a working setup, then one is able to participate in civilization and the system and to function economically to produce continuous energy for the maintenance of basic needs, which includes a holistic ecological treasury of one's life. Right, and at the final part of the article here, I list my personal Nostr public key, which begins with npub1esawtrr, my personal Nostr profile, Bitcoin Security Maps podcast Nostr profile, right, and my Bitcoin Security Maps podcast on Fountain FM with V4V. Let's see if that loads this time. Okay, we'll wait for that for a second there. Right, so this is my njump.me for the Bitcoin Security Maps, which is exciting. Right, and that does it for this article. This is under much development over 2024, and much is unpublished, so you might see temporary working drafts in places. Right. So this has been filed under podcasting, value for value, Bitcoin Lightning Network, Nostr, and web app security on my Medium Cyberpower Telenoia publication. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope this helped you out a little bit in possibly configuring or thinking about your own podcast setup in this way. I would really enjoy hearing from you if you are doing so, and I can help in various ways. Not with all of it, because my goodness, doing this all by oneself is a lot of work. So it's good to maintain touch with those who do work in the field. If you enjoy this podcast, do check out whatever I have on bitcoinsecuritymaps.com. Now or in the future, and offer your support here on the Fountain.fm app for this podcast, and also through Nostr and my accounts there, or the Bitcoin Security Maps accounts on wherever you find them. And thank you very much for tuning in, for considering this. It's an exciting ride for me. A lot more to say about all this. And every time I review it, I even congratulate myself on it. And wow, I'm just like the person who's used a rowboat to row to the iceberg and climb onto the tip of it and set my little flag on there. But the iceberg, that's not a good analogy. But yeah, the tree was planted with seeds by those who know how to plant trees and take care of seeds. from the previous trees, which had been taken care of as well, whether that's by nature or by humans or whatnot. So it's an exciting time we live in, and these tools offer a new kind of connection with the technologies that we use to create a thriving humanity on the planet at the time when ecological understanding and spiritual understanding is needed. And through these digital technologies, the spread of facts as opposed to fiction is essential to continuing this, and being able to do so without censorship is important. But then still, anyone can publish anything. So then still, we need to be able to filter, to develop spiritually and understand which are facts, because you can have uncensored misinformation now as well. But interestingly enough, there's a lot of people who have the facts and are spreading them and are being censored. And so that is the more important part. And so hopefully we get to work together to maintain the foundations, the right foundations, to collaborate with those who are the right entities to collaborate with, whether that's learned machines or people at this stage, and for the right aims, working with the right technologies. And so understanding money as the economic storage of one's time and freedom in this lifetime, as we are physically here, it's essential to understand that the technologies we use also depend on us taking care of their physical, so the hardware aspect of it. So by describing the fact that I have a Bitcoin Lightning node, the physical hardware, various nodes in various places, but even in my home, is something that is essential to understand that that also needs ecological security, meaning it can't be an environment of ecological destruction, because the hardware piece needs to function. It needs a stable environment to function in. Even just temperature controller out of the rain, and being able to access electricity and the internet itself. So these things need to be set up a certain way. I mean, you could use solar power to power it, and you could use a satellite connection to it. That's extensive setup that I have. That's not something everyone can do, but and in that way, no matter what happens, even if there is a war and a flood, perhaps you can also have the hardware node. So then is decentralized. So then you're participating in keeping it safe in a decentralized way with thousands of other people who are taking care of their node in the same way. And so in that way, and each node is running the Bitcoin Core software, so the code. And in that way, it's decentralized, and so any malicious entities would have to attack all of the thousands of nodes simultaneously in the physical environment. And so that's the difference, because if you have nodes, or maybe let's say if you have a dozen nodes controlled by big tech, well then if there's an attack on just the dozen centralized physical points on the planet, you can actually destroy this monetary system. But when it's spread across tens of thousands of points physically on the planet, then it becomes another feat. Right, so all of this is exciting. More exciting is the fact that you can now exchange value for value. So if you find this valuable, you can exchange your economic energy of your time and freedom to the extent that you find this valuable, and to have given you some new opportunity in life, perhaps through commencing your own setup, which could actually be your main lifestyle economic means to support yourself. And in that case, if this was to do this for me, I would make sure to be grateful and support those who helped me early on in this adventure. So that is why I can also understand how through my gratefulness, my ability to participate in this value exchange, and it's quite exciting because it's direct, and there's some importance and significance to working on this together right now. Having said all that, thank you very much. See you at the meetups.